Hi, I'm going to explain to you how to set up your incubator and get it ready to begin the exciting journey of seeing some little baby birds hatching. So when you first open your box, there'll be a handy guide. That's a good little reference that comes with it. So pull your polystyrene out. Your lid might be in there. So we'll separate the lid from the polystyrene and then start taking out all the little bits and pieces. So we've got power cord, we've got rollers, which is for the egg turner, and then you'll have a couple of little plastic bottles which is for your putting water into the incubator. Then we're going to put the box aside. You will need to pack all that back up into the box once you've finished hatching out your eggs. So if we have a look at the incubator, to start we're going to put rollers in. So the rollers have like a little rectangular bit in the end, and you need to line that rectangular bit up with the rectangular bit on the rollers on the incubator itself. So just kind of spin it around until you find that nice spot, and you'll see that the roller then fits into this other side here. So you've got one end that's got the hole, the other end has got like a small end, and it goes into that slot on the edge. Okay, so you've got three rollers that have these slotted ends. Once you get those three rollers in like that, then the other two rollers that are just tubes, okay, go just in between those ones that we just put in that are connected to that are sitting in those slots. Okay. Now, the next thing we want to do is get some water in there. So you can use these little bottles, and they are handy. You don't have to use it, but it is convenient because it's got like a little spout. So if I put some water into my little bottle and use the one that has the pointy lid, not the spray bottle, if I take my lid off, then I can squirt it into the right place. And you'll notice inside the incubator it has, if I've got the numbers like this display facing me, on the left it has a small channel around the left hand side. So I want to fill that channel up with water. It's a good idea. You could do it before you put the rollers in, but during the incubation you are going to have to put more water into here. So it's a good idea if you kind of have a bit of a practice when you first start. So just put the amount of water that's in one of these small bottles. Okay, so that's about the right amount that you want to put in there. Now you need to make sure you don't overfill. That's super important, because if you do, it'll overflow into the fan and the other electrical components, and that is not going to be good for the incubator. So if you notice that the water is getting low or run out, then you need to refill it again. And you'll probably, as you're incubating, need to do that every couple of days, 2 or 3 days. Check on the water. It's particularly important once we get to locking it down that we have plenty of water in there. And what that does is it increases the humidity in the incubator itself, and it helps the chicks to develop inside the egg. Once they get to the hatching stage, then if you don't have water in the incubator, what will happen is that the chick can get stuck to the inside of the egg and it can't actually get out. So quite important as you're going, but very, very important once you get to the stage where they're about to start coming out of their eggs. All right, so I've got my rollers in, I've got my water in. Now I'm going to test the incubator, okay? So before you ever put any eggs in, you want to make sure that it's working properly. So you have a USB cable and a power adapter to plug into 240 volt. Now the cool thing about this incubator is it runs off 5 volts. So if you have, for some reason, run out of power, then you can actually power it from a battery bank, as long as that battery bank will be able to produce 2 amps of power. So ideally you want to run it from a wall socket power point, but if not, you can run it off a battery. So I'm going to plug that in and make sure then my screen comes up. When it first comes up, it'll come up with 001. That's just telling you that it's booting up. Then the next thing it'll do is it'll give you a temperature. And currently it's 20.9 degrees in this room. So we're wanting to get the incubator to be between 37.5 and 38 degrees. Once the incubator gets to 38 degrees, it will stop heating. And once it gets below about 37.5 degrees, it will start heating up again. So it stays in a very small range of temperature. Now, in order to get to that temperature and maintain that temperature, really important that we keep the lid on all the time. However, if your room temperature is dropping below 20 degrees Celsius, then the incubator will have a very difficult time. It just really won't be able to maintain the correct temperature. So what you can do, especially in winter, is actually leave the incubator in the polystyrene. So I'm going to put the base back into my polystyrene, and then I can plug it in again, and you've got that cutout so that you can get your power in, and you can also see your display. Then when I put my lid on, I can again use that top polystyrene, and you've got a little bit of a cutout so you can still see what your eggs are doing inside. Now, again, before you put eggs in, it's really important that you get it up to temperature and you leave it at that temperature for a period of time, at least a couple of hours. Better would be even overnight, especially to check it in the morning to see if it has maintained that correct temperature for especially overnight. All right, so if you're comfortable that it's staying in that temperature range of about 37.5 to 38, definitely don't want it going below 37 degrees. It will fluctuate a little bit sometimes, but 37 to 38 degrees is what we're needing it to be at. Okay, so let's assume that I've left it on now for a few hours or overnight, and I'm comfortable that it's at the right temperature now, it's 38 degrees, and that it's been stable at that temperature for a period of time. I can now put my eggs into the incubator. So you'll have eggs in a little egg carton. Now these eggs are a quail egg, and the type of quail is called a Jap or Japanese quail, or we just shorten it to Jap quail, or the scientific, I suppose, or official name for them is Coturnix quails. So if you're looking for information online or in a book, either of those will usually get you to the right place. So what we're going to do then is we're going to get the roller to separate from the other one, and we're just going to lay the eggs sideways on the rollers here. So I'm going to, I don't want, can you see how I've got one roller on one side and then I've pulled the other roller over to the middle one so that the eggs aren't touching each other. Okay, and I'm going to get 4 on either side. Then I can test the rollers to make sure that they're going to turn. So if I hold down the minus button, then the eggs, oh sorry, no, the minus button is the light. If I press the plus button, it will initiate the egg roller. Now, it's just a test to make sure it's actually going to work properly. It'll run for about 5 seconds and then stop, and then about every 2 hours it will do it automatically. Okay, so you can, once you've got it set and your eggs are in there, you don't have to do anything else. It'll maintain the temperature for you. It will turn them about every 2 hours to keep those eggs so that the chick is developing properly and not just staying on one side of the egg. It helps to keep all the yolk and the other things that are developing inside the egg, the embryo, moving around properly. Okay, so if it was the mum, the hen in the wild, then she does that automatically, and so that's why we have this little machine to simulate what the mother is doing. Okay, so I'm going to put my polystyrene back on, and I'm going to leave it. Now what you want to do is you want to know how long to leave them in there. So when you first set the eggs, make sure you write down the date and keep that handy. Now these quail will hatch in 18 days. So what we want to do at about 16 days is lock down, what we call locking down the eggs. So we want to take them off the rollers, and we'll do that in a second. So for example, if today was the 1st of the month, I would add 16 days, and I would say then on the 17th of the month I want to lock it down. Now that's super important that you do this on time. So sometimes you might want to work backwards. So if you say, well, I'm not going to be available on the 17th, then maybe you need to wait another day before you put your eggs in to a time when you are going to be around to be able to lock down the eggs, and then also to be able to look after them after they hatch. So let's assume that they've been in here for 16 days now, and then I'm going to lock down the eggs. So to lock down the eggs, I'm going to take our covers off. You need to take your eggs out, and you can keep your egg tray for that, just for somewhere to put them. If you need to, you could put them on a cloth or something. Basically, you just want to make sure they're not going to roll all over your bench. Then I'm going to pull the rollers out. Be gentle with the ones that are locked in, so they just slide out. You lift up that left hand end and slide it out of the turner that's on the right. Just be careful not to pull it up too far, otherwise you'll break the turner. Okay. Once we have the rollers out, then we're going to put the little screen in, and then I'm going to put the eggs back on there. Just gently lay them on that screen, and it doesn't matter too much where they are, if they're touching each other or not. The chicks will be able to get out of it just fine. Now at this stage, make sure you've got some water in that little tray. Okay. because this is the most critical time to have good humidity in the incubator. Okay, you can put your lid back on, polystyrene back on if we're trying to maintain temperature, and then you want to just leave them until they hatch. And you'll see, I'll do another video on hatching and how that works, but sometimes they will come a day early and sometimes they may even come a day or two late. So even though we say 18 days, sometimes some of them will start hatching about day 17, and then some of them may hatch as late as 19 or 20 days. But they're usually pretty close around the 18 days. Okay, so the only other thing that we need that I want to tell you about is candling the eggs. So quail eggs, if you've done chicken eggs before, candling chicken eggs is very easy. Their shell is clear, and it's usually very easy to see in their through their shell what's going on. Now, quail eggs have a thicker shell than chicken eggs, and they also have colours. So particularly, you get some eggs like this that have got lots of spots on it. They can be a little bit difficult to see into the egg at times. So you may not be able to follow the development as easily with a quail egg as what you can with a chicken egg. However, in saying that though, you will be able to see that it is actually developing. You just don't get as clear a picture. So on this incubator, it has a light, and I accidentally did that before by pressing. So if you press and hold the minus sign, the little light will come on. However, because it's kind of in the side of the incubator, a little bit difficult, I tend to want to use a light that's a different source. So if you've got a phone, the light on your phone works quite well. Otherwise, a torch will work quite well as also. You want to be in a nice dark room to candle them. And then if I turn the torch on and I put the pointy end to my light, in a dark room, I'll be able to see whether it's developing or not. Now, after 5 days, you might get an indication of whether it's started to develop, but definitely by 10 days, you'll be able to notice a big difference between the ones that are developing and the ones that aren't. The ones that aren't developing will look green on the inside all the way through the egg, and you might even be able to see a little bit of a yellow yolk. But the ones that are developing, you'll definitely be able to see a very distinct dark spot. About half the egg, or even maybe a little more than half the egg, would be quite dark. You don't see much of easily see much of an embryo, but look for that very dark area. And I'll see if I can I'll do a video showing how those differences look in another video. So, all right, I think that's about all you need to know to get started. It's a really exciting journey. It's a lot of fun seeing the little chicks hatch out. They're very adorable. And then look for the next video of candling and also hatching, and then we'll do another one for brooding as well. So thank you.